One way that we can see why it is we're interested in adding and subtracting functions is to take a look at an example where we have a revenue function which calculates revenue in dollars from sales of graphing calculators, and a cost function which calculates cost in dollars from producing graphing calculators. Our profit can be calculated by subtracting cost from revenue, as we are told by this expression right here, R minus C. P is given by R minus C, and we are asked to find P of 1200. We can do this in one of two ways. Both of these ways will work. One way is to find P of x by subtracting the polynomials. If we find P of x by subtracting the polynomials, then we will have a function into which we can plug 1200 as an input. However, another way is to plug in 1200 as an input to each of these component functions, revenue and cost, calculate each of those, and then just subtract the results. So to summarize, we can either find P of x first by subtracting polynomials, then plug in 1200 as the input, or start by just plugging 1200 in for x in both R and C, and then subtract the results. I'm going to choose this second approach, and the reason is because we don't need the polynomial P of x if all we're asked to find is P of 1200. So this second approach is going to be a little bit simpler, and we're going to use the basic model. P of 1200 is equal to R of 1200 minus C of 1200. If it's true that P of x is equal to R of x minus C of x, then it's also true for a specific value of x. So what I'll do now is focus on finding R of 1200 and C of 1200 by plugging 1200 in for x. R of 1200 is negative 0.015 times 1200 squared plus 60 times 1200. So for R of 1200, I get 50,400. That means my revenue from selling 1200 calculators is $50,400. Next, we need to find C of 1200, which we'll get by plugging 1200 in for x in the function C of x. 600 plus 9 times 1200 comes to $11,400. So now we will find P of 1200 by subtracting these two numbers. So P of 1200 is equal to R of 1200, which is 50,400, minus C of 1200, which is 11,400, which comes out to 39,000. So we now have the statement P of 1200 equals 39,000. The next question that we want to address is, what does your answer mean? And in order to answer this, we really can translate the statement P of 1200 equals 39,000 from left to right. P we know to be profit, so I'm going to translate P as the word profit. 1200 is a value of x, and if we look back at the original phrasing of this problem, we are told that x is the number of graphing calculators produced and sold. So 1200 should be a number of graphing calculators. We now have profit from 1200 calculators Our equal sign is generally the word is or is some form of the verb to be. It could be a past tense or a present tense, depending on the context. And 39,000, since we know that that is our profit, and that the original problem expressed revenue and cost in units of dollars, we know that our profit will also be expressed in dollars. So our whole sentence that puts everything together says profit from 1,200 calculators is $39,000. Keep in mind that in a question like this, having a number for your input and a number for your output, each of which is expressed in units, is a really important part. So we want units for the input value and the output value. Once we have the numbers with units, the sentence usually writes itself.